those are city initiated, not business. The business hasn't put them
No, the city put them in, and that city, I think, actually charges for charging. But a lot of municipalities, it seems the trend that municipalities are paying for those just to promote those things that I've talked about.
I noticed there's several places where businesses are putting them in.
They are.
One of the things we discussed probably about a year ago, I guess it was, maybe a year and a half ago, when we were talking with representatives from Nissan and from Georgia Power. We talked about the parking facility, and that seemed to be a good place to put them because it's a covered location. You don't get as much damage to the actual units and things like that. But one of the things we also talked about at that time was the possibility of looking at some in our parks as well. You know, if you've got to get so much time, you know, having one at Etowah River Park that services two spaces is not a bad thing. The other thing we discussed was perhaps looking at our planning codes so that when you get a development of a certain size that has so much in parking that it's a requirement that development install so many of those types of spaces. You know, we have requirements as it relates to ADA spaces, for instance, but we don't have requirements in there. You know, if you're going to build a major shopping center that's going to have 300 car parks, then maybe, you know, asking for 4 of them to be electric is not the end of the world.
Right, and that's why, you know, the infrastructure, the 125 is a lot going in there, and as maybe we could talk Harris Group or Georgia Power and see if we could get some partnerships to, while they're doing that, you know, even if it was one, it's one more than we have now, but it's just, I think it's interesting.
Bill, is the only one that they have, is it right there by Morgan's? Is that?
Yes.
No, that's so obvious and stands right out. You drive in there, you can't miss it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the messages you want to send.
Right.
Because
right.
to me, it seems because we're such a narrow, long city, the likelihood of somebody from the city coming into downtown or wherever to be charged is limited. Is pretty small. Even the worst of the mileage on is probably the Nissan Leaf, which gets like 80 to 90 miles on a charge. It's highly unlikely for people to come downtown and need a charge from within the city. But it does send a message when people come from outside the city and they have an electric car and they need a charge, they know they can get one. They come from Jasper or something, they run along, they know they can do it. And come and shop and Canton. So I think we just have to figure out where and when to do it. What's the best thing for the city?
Mr. Group?
I would like to plant that seed of asking the new development across from Canton Marketplace to put in an electric charging station. I know we can't require it, but if we planted that seed, and they might see that it's a good idea. And I would like to see it become part of our requirements, that a new development have charging stations. And we'll be having new developments over at the hospital. And I think that that would be a good place to start.
Sure.
Have the people from across from Canton Marketplace agreed to our annexation proposal yet? Which maybe we're a little bit ahead of the curve. Did they accept our proposal?
I haven't heard anything.
Well, we can plant that seed whether they accept the annexation or not, just to ask them to do that as part of saving the
Probably a good
environment.
place to have, I'm sure. Absolutely.
I would be curious how many total electric vehicles there are in the city. I think that the tax commissioner could probably give us that information, since I think there's a special tag or a special break or something they get, don't they, for?
There is, and you know that it's one of those things where, you know, the tax programs, the credit programs change, you know, and so the states had one before and it's gone away. Now there's federal ones that, you know, they move around, and so because of that, you know, you might see an influx in the purchase of those vehicles in the last quarter of the calendar year, so to speak.
Right.
Take advantage of those programs, but you know, some of it has more to do with that. You know, at one time there was certain rebates you could get if you put one of those stations in your own personal home, and so people were taking advantage of that, the rebate that they could get on their vehicle. I mean, our neighbor across the street from us has an electric vehicle, so you know, they're there. You know,
I think there was a real aggressive program that I know Nissan had one, $7,500 Georgia credit. That went away, that one in Georgia took that away. So all of a sudden, you had a lot of people didn't buy them anymore and turned them back in on leases, because the leases were real cheap.
Well, and the technology's getting better too.
Oh, yeah.
As it gets better, it will be a vehicle that more and more people
Well,
will.
it's no question, it's the future.
The tax credit in Georgia was eliminated, but as you say, those, I think, come and go. Woodstock did say when the tax credit was eliminated, that they did see, usage go down. But still, there's, over 500 sessions per month. I think that's,
That's
pretty
a lot.
high.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And, I know several people in town that do have electric cars, and a couple of them have asked me, and they mentioned, we can go down to Woodstock and charge it, but there's no one here. But I think going forward is probably gonna be just a natural part of our development.
Anything else? Okay. City manager's report?
Just a couple of items. We have received an initial concept report from Atkins as it relates to some trail planning to the west side of the city. And I'll be sending that out to you. We got it late last week, and we're still reviewing it from a staff standpoint. It coincides with some sewer work that needs to be done in that area, so that's what we're trying to weed through that report a little bit. I have in front of you an item that was brought to our attention out of chapter 114. You should have a copy of it at your seat. When we approved the new chapter 114 from Unicode as it relates to our water system, this section inadvertently got left out of the chapter that was approved. And so when we turned it into Unicode, they realized that there was a duplicate section in there. Instead of this section being in there, there was another section that had been duplicated as part of it. So this will be placed on your agenda for you to approve later this month, so that we can close in that hole that exists in the chapter, so that we can get it codified by Unicode.
So this has not been adopted?
This piece has not been adopted. The section was in there, the heading was in there, but one of the sections, one of the articles got duplicated in there, and this section got left out. So you were getting two of the same back-to-back.
But wasn't it adopted?
It existed before.
So it's been adopted?
But it was just taken out by accident. But unfortunately, what we sent to Unicode doesn't have it.
Right, and so since you adopted that whole new section to be codified, we're bringing this to you to include in that formally, in a formal vote, so that it can be inserted in there. As you know, we've been meeting with Black and Beach on our water wastewater master plan. They would like another date to meet with you to talk about projected flows and things like that based on the service delivery area that we have. So look at your calendars. I'll be sending you an email tomorrow, hopefully, to get a date on that. And if you'd like, maybe we can schedule that and the Jones Building tour on the same day and just move from one directly into the other, so that we can kill two birds with one stone. And then the last thing I have is just a reminder that City Hall will be closed next Friday in observance of Veterans Day. We close on that day as a holiday for our staff that are veterans, but Veterans Day is on a Saturday, so we'll observe it on Friday the 10th. That's all I have.
Anything else? Okay. I just have a couple of things I wanted to mention. The first, again, has something to do that came from our discussion regarding our water and wastewater master planning. And, but to regress a little bit, back, 8 or 9 years ago, we realized that we had somewhat of an inequity where some people within our city were paying streetlight bills, and others were paying nothing for streetlights. All of the newer subdivisions and so forth were paying $3 or $3.50 a month for streetlights, but I lived on Cherokee Street, street light at the end of my driveway, I wasn't paying anything else. So that didn't seem exactly right to me, so we, the council saw fit to change that so that everyone is, you know, it's taken from our general fund, we pay for the street lights and provide the street lights. So that seemed to resolve that issue. And a little bit differently regarding the water and sewer, we have residents that are actually paying $13.29 per 1,000 gallons, and we have some that are paying $11.20 per 1,000 gallons. And that's because of who is providing the service. If Cherokee Water and Sewer Authority is providing it, they're providing it at about 18.7% less as far as a rate to our customers than if the city of Canton is providing it at $13.29. You know, to me, it ought to be the same. You know, if you live in the city, you ought to pay the same. Now, there's an argument there that, well, their cost is more, our costs are more or less or whatever. But I don't think the average resident out there realizes that. And when you get to sewer, it's even more magnified. From minimum bill of 2,000 gallons for Canton residents who are on the Canton system, basically are paying $12.60. I'm sorry, some are paying $12.60 per 1,000 gallons, which are those who are actually being billed by the Cherokee Water and Sewer Authority. Those being billed by the city are paying $19.50 per 1,000 gallons, which is almost 55% more. To me, that's an inequity that I don't see really. That it needs to be corrected. Now, whether or not we're able to do so, you know, we've made a net above expenses in our water and sewer system about $3 million. Am I correct? This ending September 30th. It may be that we may need to have to take some of that and equalize this some way or another, or there's some other way of doing this, or maybe we do nothing. But, you know, if you got a citizen living in one area of the city getting water and sewer, and another one in another area getting water and sewer, my way of thinking is I'll be paying the same thing if they're using the same amount of water. But in addition to that, you know, just as a side note, I guess, right now it appears from a preliminary standpoint that the Cherokee Water and Sewer Authority is providing about 20 to 25% of our water and sewer needs here in the city. That's more than I really thought, to be honest with you. But that's what it looks like. I think that's something you need to really think about, and and I think it wants some further discussion as we go down the road and see if it can be, you know, if we can do anything about that. May not be able to, but I think we should at least try. The other item that I have, the Cherokee County Historical Society, Stephanie Joyner, the director, had sent an email. I think most of you, some of you at least, got that email regarding the historic tax credit. That is, you know, there's a lot going on in Congress right now, and they're cutting where they can, but, and I'm not opposed to cutting a lot of stuff that they've got up there, but the federal historic tax credit has been very important to the city, and it's very important, particularly in areas where you got a lot of historic buildings and you're growing, and a lot of these buildings are being utilized now or potentially will be utilized. So I think it's a real incentive for someone to do something with these historic buildings and help move our city forward. She had asked that we do a resolution and that we send a letter to our Georgia congressional delegation asking that in their deliberations regarding the tax revisions that they're working on now, that they not consider eliminating this federal historic tax credit. And I think that's something we really should be doing. So I will read the resolution, and in fact, now and then be happy to share this. I got a letter here that we've drafted sending it to Senator Isaacson, Purdue, and Representative Loudermilk, asking them to keep an eye on that and hopefully protect that historic tax credit. Whereas the federal historic tax credit program, as we know it today, was put in place by Congress and the Reagan administration to attract capital to historic rehabilitation projects that help stimulate local economies. And whereas since the inception of the HTC, it has created over 2.4 million jobs, rehabilitated more than 42,293 buildings, and leveraged $131 billion in private investment. And whereas recognizing the importance of this successful federal economic development program, more than 35 states have enacted complementary state historic tax credit programs to help revitalize the commercial downtowns of their cities and Main Street communities. And whereas the federal HTC projects have a 99% success rate, leverage $4 private dollars for every dollar of federal support, and are catalytic, building neighborhood confidence and generating follow-on projects for blocks around. And whereas over the life of this program, the HTC has generated $29.8 billion in federal tax revenues compared to $25.2 billion in credits allocated, more than paying for itself. And whereas the federal HTC program has significant importance for the state of Georgia to help preserve our historic structures, job creation, along with housing and tourism. Now therefore be resolved, the Mayor and City Council of Canton, City of Canton, in due, regular, and legal session convened, that the Mayor and City Council supports the federal historic tax credit program and urges the President of the United States and the United States Congress to continue the federal historic tax credit program. I think it's really important. One of those tax credit programs just in the last few years occurred right here in Canton. So, and hopefully, I know it's a lot, I understand from Dilly that's a sort of a complicated process to get it, but it's really beneficial, and it'll protect a lot of the historic properties, I think, and encourage people to protect them. So I would entertain a motion, if it's agreeable with this council, to support the preservation of the historic tax credit, and to send approve the resolution and to send a letter to our congressional delegation.
So
Second. Yeah, I believe Jackie made the second. Sandy made the motion. Jack Goodwin seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members are voting for the motion. We'll get that out.
This Jones building could only be impacted if somebody came in and invested in it.
Right, we could do, it wouldn't do us any good. Yeah, you get that somebody, a private individual could come in and do something with it and perhaps qualify for that. Isn't,
The state program has a residential and a
well, the lofts.
commercial
they were used, that would
component.
not be commercial. But
Well, apartments are considered to be commercial from the program standpoint, but there are some residential applications for it, yes.
I do believe we have had people even before looking at the Jones building that were looking at that, and we had, my understanding is we have people currently looking at some historic buildings that are checking into that program as well. And those of you who've been down to Hunt City Market in Atlanta, amazing redevelopment. That was the largest historic tax credit program in the country. And if you haven't been in there, you should go and just see what it's done for that whole area. It's just amazing.
Well, it's my understanding this is still in the proposal right now, and of course, it's got a ways to go, I suspect, but there'll be a lot of discussion over the next few weeks and everything about this, and just hopefully it stays in there. Okay. All right. That's all that I have. Let's see, we do need to adjourn the executive session to discuss possible litigation and personnel. Dion made second the motion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We will not be coming back out for any notice.